A cold, rainy morning. Wind howling through empty streets. And a lonely stray dog, soaked to the bone, standing motionless at a busy intersection. Eyes locked on something far beyond what anyone else could see. People passed him by. Cars splashed puddles near his paws. But he didn't move. What was he waiting for? Little did anyone know, that dog held the key to a secret buried deep in the shadows. A secret so unbelievable, it would change everything. It started on a Tuesday morning in a small town tucked between the mountains. The local animal rescue team was wrapping up a long week. Rain had been relentless. Reports of flooded roads, missing pets, and stranded animals were flooding in. Among the reports came a call from a store owner. "There's a dog out here that won't move. Just sits there in the rain, staring at the woods like he's waiting for someone." Exhausted but intrigued, Mia, one of the lead rescuers, decided to check it out. She drove through the fog-covered streets, windshield wipers squeaking as they battled the storm. When she arrived, there he was. A medium-sized stray, fur-matted and soaked, ribs slightly visible. But what struck her most were his eyes. Not desperate or fearful, but focused. Intent. Mia stepped out of her truck slowly. "Hey, buddy. Are you okay?" No response. The dog didn't flinch. Didn't growl. Didn't run. He just turned his head. Looked at her. Then looked back toward the woods. That moment changed everything. Mia knelt down, offering a piece of leftover sandwich. The dog sniffed, gently took it, and ate without breaking his gaze toward the trees. "Are you trying to tell me something?" She decided to follow his line of sight. But the forest ahead was dense. The rain made visibility poor, and the thought of trekking in alone wasn't safe. She called her partner, Jake. "Bring the gear. And hurry. There's something about this dog. I think he's leading us somewhere." Within an hour, Jake arrived with flashlights, waterproof boots, and a thermal blanket for the dog. Mia gently secured a leash. The dog didn't resist. In fact, he began to walk on his own. Not randomly, not aimlessly, but with purpose. And so, the three of them entered the woods. The path was overgrown, slick with mud. Branches scratched against their jackets. Every few feet, the dog would stop, glance back at them, then continue. Mia whispered, "He knows where he's going. This is no accident." Jake nodded. Or maybe he lost someone out here. That thought hit hard. Deeper into the forest, the air grew colder. The only sounds were their boots squishing in the mud and the rhythmic drip of rainwater from the trees. Then the dog stopped. He sniffed the ground, let out a soft whine, and began pawing at a pile of wet leaves near a fallen log. Mia's heart raced. She knelt beside him and began brushing away the debris. And there it was, a torn piece of flannel, blood-stained, half buried in the mud. Mia froze. "Jake, this isn't just a rescue. Something happened here." Jake leaned in. "That's human blood. Recently dried." The dog backed away slightly, letting out a low, mournful whimper. Mia looked around. The silence now felt heavier. "We need to call the police." But before they could grab the radio, the dog darted forward again. Faster now, more urgent. They followed. They came to a clearing. What they saw next stole the breath from their lungs. An old, rusted van, almost hidden beneath layers of moss and overgrowth. Its back door slightly open. And beside it, a torn backpack. Its contents spilled out into the mud. Inside the van, barely visible through the grime-smeared windows, was something moving. Mia and Jake rushed forward. "Hello. Can you hear us?" No response. Mia yanked open the door. There, curled in the corner of the van, was a teenage girl, unconscious, freezing, and barely breathing. Jake covered her with his jacket. "We need an ambulance. Now." Mia turned to the dog, who stood quietly by the van, tail still, eyes watchful. "You brought us to her. You saved her." The girl was later identified as Emily, missing for 3 days after a hiking trip gone wrong. Hypothermic and dehydrated, but alive. And the dog? He was a stray no one claimed. No collar. No chip. Just a nameless hero with a story no one could explain. But the truth, the real truth, was even more unbelievable. The forest clearing was still soaked in silence. Emily had been rushed to the hospital, the paramedics shaking their heads in disbelief. The officers arrived shortly after and began examining the scene. But the dog, the mysterious, mud-caked stray who led them there, just sat quietly under a tree, watching everyone come and go, like he was making sure it wasn't over yet. Mia stayed behind after Emily was taken away. "Something's not right, Jake. He's not just some lucky dog who happened upon her. He knew where she was. He waited for help." He brought us here. Jake glanced toward the animal, who was now lying down but alert. You think someone trained him? Mia shook her head. No, this isn't training. This is something else. They took the dog back with them to the shelter for the night. He didn't resist. He didn't flinch at the crate or the bath. He just watched. Quiet. Present. A soul far older than his years. The vet examined him. No microchip. No ID tattoo. Estimated to be 5 or 6 years old. Malnourished but no major injuries. Yet his eyes told another story, like he had seen things that couldn't be put into words. They named him Shadow. The name felt right. He moved like a shadow, unnoticed yet always there. A witness. A protector. The next day, the police asked Mia and Jake to return to the site. Something about the van didn't add up. The vehicle wasn't registered. The plates had been swapped. And inside the van, under the floor mat, they found a hidden compartment. Inside it, an old journal. Mia opened the first page. The handwriting was erratic. If someone finds this, please believe me. I wasn't crazy. The journal belonged to a woman named Claire. The entries dated back nearly 3 years. She had written about hiking alone in the same woods, about finding something in the trees, something she couldn't explain. Animal bones arranged in patterns. A rusted cage hidden beneath a bush. Whispering at night. And always a dog. Watching her from a distance. He follows me. He never comes close. But every time I'm afraid, he's there. Claire's last entry was dated 8 days after her first. It ended abruptly. I hear something outside the van. I think I'm not alone. The dog is barking now. Something is wrong. That was the last they ever heard from Claire. No missing person report. No search party. Nothing. Jake stared at the page. Are we saying this could be the same dog? Mia didn't answer. She didn't have to. Shadow had seen it all. Whatever happened in those woods, he had lived through it. Twice. Back at the shelter, Shadow refused to sleep. He paced quietly in his kennel. Whenever Mia approached, he calmed. But he kept glancing at the door, like he was waiting for something or someone. Emily, still recovering in the hospital, asked to meet the dog. He's the reason I'm alive, she said. I want to see him. When Mia brought Shadow to the hospital, what happened stunned everyone. The dog walked into the room, paused, and laid his head on Emily's lap. No hesitation. No fear. Just comfort. Emily began to cry. He never left me. Not once. Even when I passed out, I remember him nudging me, curling beside me, keeping me warm. She looked at Mia, voice trembling. I think he lost someone, and he couldn't let it happen again. The story gained traction. Local news ran it first. Then regional. Then national. Stray dog leads rescuers to missing girl in forest van mystery. People were moved by Shadow's courage. Donations poured into the shelter. Adoption requests flooded in. But Mia declined them all. He's not ready. And maybe, he's still searching for someone. The journal had mentioned a cabin deeper in the woods. Claire had written about finding it, but never said exactly where. Just that it was hidden, surrounded by stones stacked like guardians. Mia couldn't sleep. That image haunted her. Jake, what if there's more? What if Shadow led us halfway? Jake exhaled. You think he's waiting for us to go back? I know he is. And Shadow? When Mia held up the leash again, he walked straight to the door. No hesitation, tail steady. They were going back into the woods. And this time, they were ready for what they might find. The forest welcomed them with a strange silence, not the eerie kind, but something softer, like it too was holding its breath. Shadow led the way again. Through mud, past fallen trees, over a narrow stream. He moved swiftly but without fear, pausing now and then as if recalling a memory. After nearly 2 hours of trekking, they reached a clearing unlike any other. And there it was. A cabin. Old, leaning slightly to one side, its windows fogged and cracked. But around it, stones. Stacked carefully in small towers. Dozens of them. Mia stepped forward. This is it. Jake readied his flashlight and slowly pushed the creaky door open. The inside smelled of damp wood and dust. A lantern sat on a small table, a faded sleeping bag in the corner. On the wall, scratched into the wood, were names. Dozens. Each one carved with care. Some with full dates. Some with just initials. Claire's name was there, with a heart next to it. Beside it, a rough drawing. A dog. Mia's voice was barely a whisper. She lived here. Maybe even died here. And that dog was with her. They found a photo under a floorboard. Water damaged but still legible. Claire and the dog, younger, healthier, smiling. She had survived for a while. Maybe long enough to bond with the very creature who would later carry her story. In the weeks that followed, the investigation continued. No evidence of foul play, but plenty of mystery. Emily fully recovered. She returned home, changed but stronger. She kept the journal, a reminder of resilience, and of a stranger who had once felt as lost as she had. And Shadow, he stayed with Mia. Not in a kennel, not as a rescue case, but as family. He'd still sit by the door sometimes, staring out into the woods. But he no longer looked restless. He looked at peace. One evening, Mia sat beside him on the porch. You did what no one else could. You saved her. And maybe, you saved yourself too. Shadow leaned his head on her lap. Some things don't need words. Months passed. The shelter's story traveled the world. Shadow became a symbol of loyalty, of intuition, of silent courage. Children visited the shelter to meet him. Families donated in his name. A mural was painted on the wall. Shadow in front of a forest, eyes steady, heart full. Mia wrote the final lines of the story in her journal. Asterisk sometimes, heroes don't wear badges or capes. Sometimes they walk on four legs, with quiet eyes and gentle hearts. Asterisk. Moral of the story asterisk. In a world full of noise, sometimes it's the quiet ones who save us. Shadow's journey teaches us that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits patiently, endures silently, and acts when the moment matters most. He reminded us that love, loyalty, and healing can come from the most unexpected places, and that even in the darkest woods, there's always someone watching over us. Someone like Shadow. The end.